The last location for the Boston workshops was the rooftop of an office building with a gorgeous look over the skyline of Boston. With the students we went here during the day to explain some more in-depth how to measure the sky in combination with the strobes to make a nice balanced shoot with a more filling flash feel and a more day-to-night feel. I immediately fell in love with the nice neon sign you see here and knew that I wanted to do something with that when it was lit, so we had to go back during nighttime. As you can see, the sun was high in the sky, creating a not so easy to light situation. However, thanks to the modern flash equipment, also situations like this are no problem anymore. In this case, and most of my outside work, I'm using the Allen Maxi Light, which you see here fitted with a grid to control the light bundle. I love the more high contrast feel in images and I'm not afraid to use a lot of shadows, and the grid really helps with that look. For the first setup, we placed the Maxi Light a bit further away from the model, creating a more natural look, meaning the sky will be nice and bright but not blown out. As you can see on the video, because the sun is behind the model, she's not getting a lot of light, meaning if I would shoot here like this, the sky will be white if my model has the correct exposure. So I will have to use strobes to balance this. I will, however, most of the time not use my light straight on the model, but slightly under an angle. By moving around my model, I will create different looks, choosing the one I like best later. In these kind of setups, I will first measure the sky with a reflective meter reading, and I will open up approximately 1 stop to that outcome. If I measure the clouds, I will open up around 2 stops. This way the sky will look natural, but the model will get a lot of light and the two combined will get you a nice image. So let's say the sky would measure f11 on 125th of a second. This would mean I will set my strobes on f8 and shoot the scene on f8. And here we see our second model. By the way, as you can see here, I'm still going for those low angle shots. Let's talk during this segment a bit about styling and posing. Posing is always something that a lot of people struggle with, and indeed it's not that easy. What I always try to do is find curves in the pose, or in other words to make a nice flowing line. One of the tricks you can use is to make the legs longer in a shot, as for example to stretch the toes forward, as you can see here. We incorporated that into this pose. As a lighting setup, we moved the light a bit more to the side of the model and I raised the output of the strobes considerably. At this moment we don't want to see the sky as natural, but I want the sky to go considerably darker. Often I will choose 2 stops over the reflective metering of the sky, if strobe power is sufficient, or of course with the Maxi Light that really helps with this. It has an awesome output. With this model it's also interesting to look at the styling. I strongly believe that if you spend more time for the styling, the outcome of the shot will be more interesting. In this case the model and stylist combined some elements to a, for me, interesting and edgy look. And I love edgy. I also find it fitting for the location in this case. And finally, just a fun shot with one of our makeup artists in the shot. I always try to do this in a session to make sure that they also have a nice image to remember the day by. So as you can see here, we skipped a few hours and we returned to the rooftop at sundown to get a totally different look from the same location, and we brought 2 new models. To measure a scene like this is not very different from what we've done before. However, it's very important to remember that in this case we want the sky to go even darker. By making the sky darker, the colors of the sunset will be much more intense and this will enhance the final image. However, we don't want it to go too dark and lose detail in the buildings before the lights go on. It's therefore always a good idea to check your settings by taking a reflective meter reading of one of the buildings and make sure that there's not more than approximately 4 stops difference between your settings and the shadow parts where you want detail. If there is, you will have to decide what to do. You can always recover some shadows, but if you have also enough range in the highlights, it's wiser to slightly open up and pull that back in Photoshop without pulling back the shadows. And here we have our second model. After these shots we had to wait for the sun to go down. And what do you do while waiting? Well, okay, we play around a bit. And play tourist. With the sun dropping very quickly, we already set up the strobes for the final part of the shoot. I wanted some images with the neon sign and of course with the lit buildings in the background. It's always a good idea to get some shots in before the moment of the real shoot. You never know what you're gonna get and maybe there's something really great there. So just play around. And also you can already experiment with poses and angles for the final shots. One good in-between tip is about focusing. Although the video looks really nice and bright, in reality this was not the case anymore at this time. The sun was mostly gone and caused a really nice backlit situation. However, what looks nice can be a problem for the autofocus system of your camera.